What's going on, guys? Nick Lesagore here, Exit 12 Homebrew in the house. And I'm here with a little bit different of a video. I've gotten some feedback recently that there aren't many content creators on YouTube that currently have the Brewzilla Gen 4 65-liter unit, and people would like to see more of that. So I'd like to capitalize on that. And what I'm going to do is start making more content centered around my experience with the unit. Spoiler alert, I love it. But I did post a video last week that outlined using a new 25-watt pump that I purchased off of Beer Co. In Australia. And I figured I might get some questions centered around the pump install. So you saw some B-roll in that video if you watched it. If not, I'll put the link in the description. It's just the video before this one. I put some B-roll from the pump install in that video, but I figured I had enough footage from that pump install experience that I thought I'd make a completely different video about it, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And so this intro, I'm just going to talk through a little bit of some of the footage that I took, but for the most part, I am explaining in real time basically how the install went. And then at the end, I do a little bit of a water test, and then I'll pop back on to kind of explain the overall experience with the pump. In terms of shipping the pump from Australia, it probably took about 7 days to Massachusetts, where I live. It was really easy, and the pump itself, as you'll see, is pretty robust. Basically, the reason why, high-level overview, if you haven't known yet, if you don't know yet, if you haven't watched the videos, the reason why I upgraded the pump situation is because the first 3 beers that I brewed, I was getting a stuck transfer. So when I was going to transfer to the fermenter, the pump was stuck. So I tried to reroute the pump away from the spigot itself, and just to have the beer come down into the spigot. That didn't work either. And so I had to use, on my last 1 or 2 beers before I purchased the new pump, I had to use a hop spider, and that seemed to work out pretty well. The beers I was brewing was, a Saison, blueberry Hefeweizen, very low hop beers. And so there's no reason for it to be clogged the way it was. So I knew I had to purchase the new pump. And so that's exactly what I did. So I'm taking off the cover here. And like I said, overall, I'm happy with the pump. And as you'll see, the install was relatively easy, especially for somebody like me who is not really interested or very good at anything relating to electricity. I'm not an electrician at all. But overall, it was a good experience. Okay. So we have the new pump hooked up from an electrical standpoint here at the end. And then here to ground. So now all I have to do is connect it to the end piece here, the end of the electrical board. I'm going to drill it in and do some piping. As folks that watch the channel know, I had changed the piping around so that, because we were clogging with the smaller pump, I had changed the piping around to go right from the bottom of the unit all the way into the spigot. But I think I'm going to change it back around to the original, how you get it out of the factory, which is the T piping that goes through the pump, goes out of the unit, through the pump, and in the spigot. Oh. That's what I think I'm going to do.
Oh, Dada.
Yeah. Okay. What I ended up doing, because the inlet here was too long, so when putting the pump down, so basically what I did was a version of the Homebrew Network, aka Gas Slug, aka Gavin method, which was to trim down the inlet, because the inlet, the way it came out, the tube was kinked really bad. So I trimmed it down. I did a little bit different. He used a saw, like a mini Gemmel saw, to do it, but I actually used one of these. I got this a long time ago. It's still very sharp. It's just a pipe cutter. it did a pretty good job, except it kind of took off some. I don't know if you can see that or not. Kind of took off some on the corner there. But I sanded it. It's not the most perfect cut of all time, but it does, as you can see, it doesn't overlap the outlet of the unit too bad. So I'm gonna try to put it on and see how it looks now. I may have to cut a little bit more off. Nice. No kinking. It looks like I may have taken off just enough. I could probably take off a tiny bit more just by looking at it. Let's see if I can get it down further. Actually, looks like the further I get it down, the more it kinks. Okay. And it looks like, if you can see, that there is no kinking. And if there is, it is very minimal, which is fantastic. Finally got it going. So I'm going to line this up. I only have 2 screws. So I'm only going to be able to use 2 screws for now, but I'm going to line it up and I'm going to pretty much call this done. I did get these hose clamps at Gavin's urging on his video. So I have one that's going to sit up here because the inlet is a little bit shorter. I really want to make sure that this is clamped down to avoid any leaking. And the reason why there is plumber's tape around this is because at some point we cracked it. So, but that was one of the first 2 or 3 brews that we did in it. So we should be good to go. All right, so I'm actually going to be doing 2 tests. The first test is going to be to determine if I connected the pump correctly and it's going to actually work from an electrical standpoint. So I'm going to be testing with the recirculation arm, mainly to see the strength, but also I'm going to be testing with the whirlpool arm as well, because I really want to see how fast it can go. The second test is actually what's currently happening underneath the unit. Because the elbow tubing was cracked, I just want to make sure, and there was kink issues, and I had to cut down the inlet to the new pump. I just want to make sure there's no leaking from all of those ends. And if there is, trying to determine where the leak is and then finding a way to get rid of it, to alleviate the leak. So let's first test out the recirculation. We'll turn this up. Well, this is at 200, but whatever. I want it decently hot because I don't like cold water. All right, let's try this out. Okay. Well, I definitely hooked it up correctly. So at least we know from an electrical standpoint, we did it right. That is, the pump is at 100% right now. And that thing is ripping. now, let's test the recirculation. The reason why we got the bigger pump was so that we can make hoppy beers and not have to use a hop filter. Mainly for things like a whirlpool. Oh yeah, that is significantly stronger. Significantly stronger than the smaller pump. And there doesn't seem to be any issues from a hesitation standpoint so far. You know, with the way that the elbow tube from the unit is. That looks like a true whirlpool. So I don't know if this is due to leaking maybe that's occurring, or just the strength of the pump, but that is a true whirlpool. Wow. I hope that's a good thing. All right, and that's the video from beginning to end of the install and the test. I didn't record it because I only had one camera and I was the only one, but I did lift up the unit to look on the bottom. One of the great things about the Brewzilla Gen 4 65 liter is that there's no bottom cover, so you can just lift it up and take a look at what's inside. There was no leaking, and as I mentioned in the video, the plumber's tape that was wrapped around one of the hoses is because I cracked it during one of the brew days, probably messing with it. I did order replacement sets. They do have them on More Beer, and they're relatively cheap. So I do have 2 replacement sets in the event that it continues leaking again. All that to say, taking a look at the pump, just purely, I mean, from an aesthetic standpoint, it's a big boy. It fits very snug in this unit, so I don't suspect it'll fit in the 35 liter. But I'm not 100% sure. In terms of the way it works, in my personal opinion, I absolutely love it. I haven't had a single stuck transfer. I haven't had a stuck mash. I haven't had any issues with the recirculation pump since I purchased the new one. No issues recirculating, no issues transferring to the fermenter. This pump cost me, with shipping, right around $70. And it was well worth every penny from Beer Co. They're not a sponsor of the BrewTubers Online Brewers Club, which I am a part of, www.brewtubers.com if you're looking to join a brew club online based. But they're not a sponsor, as I mentioned, but they have great products. They sell Kegland and they do ship from Australia, in case you're not interested in waiting for distributors and companies like More Beer to get them in. Personally, in my opinion, I think that Kegland should be including the larger pump with every single 65 liter unit that they sell. There are folks like Gavin, Gash Slug, the Homebrew Network, that'll say he never had an issue with the smaller pump in the 65 liter. And I believe him, absolutely. I can just kind of speak to my experience. And my experience is that 100%, at least 75% of the time on the 4 beers or so that I brewed, 3 out of 4 times I got a stuck transfer. And the only time I didn't was when I was using a hop spider. Overall, to me, well worth the purchase. If I were to rank the purchases of the 3 purchases I made, the wrapped temperature probe, the heat exchanger dish, and then the pump, I would probably go pump number 1, the wrapped temperature probe number 2, and then the heat exchanger dish number 3. If you're looking, maybe you have you're budgeting and you're trying to figure out where to spend your money. Personally, I would purchase the pump first. It's absolutely incredible, and I would absolutely refer anybody to buy it. All right, that's it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on YouTube in the comment section, at Exit12 Homebrew on Instagram, at Exit12 Homebrew on Twitter, at Exit12 Homebrew on Threads. Anywhere you want to chat. If you have any questions about my experience, or if you have any advice you'd like to give about how I'm handling the system and what my experience is, I'm more than willing to chat. Love to talk to people, especially folks that watch the videos. So other than that, Don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time. L'chaim.